Hi, I'm Reverend Jake Zabe, and welcome to Children's Bible Stories. So our story for today, children, is going to be the story of Saint Mark and the Shoemaker. Now this story isn't in the Bible, it's a story that is part of the early church tradition. So this story of Saint Mark, this takes place during the events of the Bible, though it's not recorded in the Bible itself. Therefore, it's an apocryphal story, and so we're going to have it as part of our children's apocrypha stories. And so the story of Saint Mark is that Mark was traveling down through Alexandria, and as he was going, his shoe broke. And something bad had happened to Mark, and he knows that whenever something bad happens, the devil is to blame for bad things happening. But rather than Mark getting cranky, because he trusted in God, he said, "Oh, well, I know that my journey is going to be smooth because Jesus Christ has forgiven my sins." That was Mark's way of saying, look, no matter what the devil does to me, he can break my shoe, he could make me sick, he could send a big storm. Whatever the devil does, it doesn't matter because I know that Jesus has forgiven my sins. So Saint Mark went to the local shoemaker, Ananias. And Ananias was fixing Mark's shoe. And he's fixing it, and as he was fixing the shoe, the oar, which is the little tool they used to fix the shoe, slipped and it cut his hand open, and he cried out, "Oh, God is one!" Now, Ananias was a pagan. He was an Alexandrian pagan, and so he didn't actually believe in one God. And so what he was doing here is he was blaspheming. He was cursing God. And see, the Romans believed that there were many gods, and so for Ananias it was a blasphemy to say God is one. There's only one God. But Mark took this opportunity to preach the truth to the man and to heal him. So Mark took some clay and he spat on it and he put it on the man's hand, and then it healed up his hand. And then Mark decided to take this opportunity, now that the man was astonished at the healing miracle, that Mark began to preach to him and explain to him that God is one, and he explained to the man about Jesus Christ and the miracles that Jesus had done. And the man said, "Wow, I would like to see this Jesus." And Mark said, "Well, I can make him known to you." And so Mark continued to preach to him. And after Mark had preached to him, Ananias took Mark back to his household, and Mark baptized everyone in his household. He baptized in the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit. They were all baptized and became Christian. Now sometime later, Mark had to go off to Rome because St. Paul had been imprisoned there, and Mark was going off to visit both St. Paul and also St. Peter. But before Mark left, he ordained a bunch of other men to be pastors as well. Then he appointed Ananias to be the bishop of Alexandria. Now, according to the Lutheran Book of Concord, Philip Melanchthon quoted the church father St. Jerome, who talked about this story of St. Mark. And so St. Jerome believed that this story was true, and the Lutherans also believed it was true. That at this point in time, Mark appointed a bishop in Alexandria in order to keep an eye on the other pastors to prevent heresy from being preached in the church. And St. Jerome taught that this was the origins of the office of bishop. That St. Mark was the first person to appoint someone to be a bishop or an overseer over other pastors. And that's what St. Jerome taught, and the Lutherans believed that too. So St. Mark, he started this office of overseeing pastors, bishops who looked after the other pastors to make sure that they were preaching the truth. And so St. Mark started that tradition by appointing Ananias to be the Bishop of Alexandria. And then Mark, he got up and he went off to Rome to go see Paul and Peter. And that then, children, is our story for today. That is the story of St. Mark and the Shoemaker. I've been your host, Reverend Jake Zabel. Goodbye and God bless.